Hello and good evening. Today it is Tuesday, November 24th, 2020, and this video continues my four-part series sharing my thoughts on the NHL's new reverse retro uniforms. So, part one, I covered the Pacific Division. The last video I covered the Metropolitan Division, and now for part three I will be covering the Central Division and therefore concluding my thoughts on all of the Western Conference reverse retro uniforms. So before I continue on to that, I kind of want to backtrack a little bit. As I said in my last video, I was really hoping that the Devils would have elected to go with a green reverse retro of their original white jersey, which they have been wearing as their so-called heritage uniform in recent seasons. I think that was a missed opportunity, but I must say the red on green looks really good. I think it's great that the Devils are doing a green jersey given the opportunity that they've been given with the reverse retro program to try something a little bit out there. Of all the new ideas I could ever see New Jersey doing, I'm like most people. I never thought I'd see New Jersey do a green jersey, but I have to say I'm a fan. It's grown on me even more since between now and when I filmed my last video. So now moving on to the Islanders. Now, in my last video, I said that I actually think this jersey looks really good. I still stand behind it, and honestly, I think a navy blue reverse retro of their away jersey with the different striping, having the orange on the bottom and the white on top, I actually think this looks really nice, and a big winner for me is the collar that does not look like, let's just say, a piece of... or looks like women's underwear, let's just say. That's what it reminds me of, at least with their home uniform collar. But the collar looks way better here. The navy blue looks great. And, I mean, don't get me wrong, I will say this. I do, personally, if I had my way, I would have made the Islanders reverse retro jersey orange. And I would have done an orange flip of their home and away jerseys and done a reverse retro based off of 1972, the Islanders' first year as a franchise in the NHL, because I would have done an orange reverse retro of their very first royal blue jersey that had orange numbers instead of the white numbers that are much better and what we're used to. But I would have done an orange flip of their home and away jerseys instead of navy blue, and I would have done that with blue numbers. But I mean, I do agree the Islanders could have done a bit more. I think an orange reverse retro would have been a little more interesting. But I must say the navy blue does look great, and I tip my hat to the Islanders for not doing a Gorton's Fisherman jersey. Now, I notice a lot of people and a lot of different YouTube channels were really hoping for a return of the Gorton's Fisherman. But I'm glad that the Islanders put their foot down and said no. And, you know, I'm not going to lie, I actually think that it would have been good if not every single team in the NHL participated in this. I mean, I get the rationale that, hey, you know, it's cool to have everybody participate, but I don't know. I mean, it does give us 31 new uniforms, so there is that. But I still think this was a great choice. Could they have been a little bit more interesting by going at least with an orange reverse retro? Yes. But I have to say, the navy blue does look good, and I know it's going to look good on the ice once we see it. Now, would I want it to replace their royal blue home jersey full-time? Absolutely not. To me, the Islanders belong in royal blue as their primary blue. But the navy blue does look great nonetheless, and I actually think it would be a decent uniform to keep around as an alternative, whether it's as some type of heritage uniform or they're allowed to do a secondary alternate like I suggested in a recent video. Something like that would be cool for it to be kept around for. But moving on, I'm still really disappointed with this Lady Liberty jersey. I mean, I've never been a big lover of the Liberty jerseys, I'm not going to lie, even growing up. I mean, I thought they were decent, but I don't know. The Lady Liberties have never been it's never been a uniform that I've absolutely loved. But I'm happy for the fans that wanted the Lady Liberty logo brought back, that they are getting Lady Liberty, which is good. I don't disagree with anyone who says that it was a cool concept for a new type of logo. Who would have thought that the Rangers would have done something more like this? And they did back in the 90s. And there's a reason it's been requested to be brought back by a lot of fans, whether it's Rangers fans or hockey fans in general, is because I agree with everybody. It's a good logo. And, you know, the Liberty uniforms were never my favorite. But I'm really disappointed with how Adidas and the Rangers, in my opinion, have made the Liberty jersey worse. Taking the red off the cuffs of the arms here was a big mistake. This jersey looks like almost like a plain practice jersey / shirt. And the logo looks like it's lower down the jersey than it should be, but maybe that's just the fact that it's a replica jersey rather than an on-ice jersey. But I've also recently learned that there's a little bit of red collar piping where it only goes halfway around the collar. And that's another big mistake. And I gotta say, I can't get over how disappointed I am with this. What they should have done is they should have added a little bit of red on the bottom of the jersey and a little thin white stripe on top of that, and left the arms the exact same way they were back in the 90s and 2000s when the Rangers initially wore their Lady Liberty jerseys. Now, I say jerseys because for one season they did wear a white flip of the navy blue Liberty alternate that has gone down in history as a well-liked alternate uniform. Now, do I think it was a bad uniform? Absolutely not. But was it my favorite? No. But I do agree with everybody. This was a cool logo, and I do think that the Rangers did a good thing by giving their fans a Liberty jersey again. So now to move on into the Central Division, I'm going to start by covering the Dallas Stars. As for Colorado's Nordiques reverse retro, I'll get to that later on. I am super disappointed with the Stars. I think bringing back the star-shaped jersey in this case made sense, but doing it as like a whiteout uniform, I've noticed a trend with these Adidas reverse retros. A lot of them, they've taken old designs and taken a lot of color off them, and they've gone minimalist, and it's not good. I mean, it looks like they're using Victory Green here, which is cool. But notice that Silver Stars logo. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that this is going to absolutely bleed into the white jersey base. I mean, look, I go back from a distance, and you can barely make out the logo. I mean, Dallas, what the hell were you thinking? They would have been better off just leaving the star on the center crest of the jersey without any type of word mark. They didn't, and they should have had this black outline here on the outside of the silver portion of the star so that it helps bring it out and makes it pop. This is just bad. It looks like a whiteout fashion jersey. It's not good. I mean, even though I think this logo is still infinitely better than their new beveled star logo, they should have at least put their main crest on the front of this to at least give this jersey a crest that actually is not going to bleed and look invisible from a distance. I think the Stars made a terrible choice here, and it's disappointing because if they would have used the version of this crest that they used throughout their years as the Dallas Stars, where it had the gold lettering, all right, this jersey would be fine. But the silver lettering, whitish silver lettering and silver star with a green inside was a big mistake. Look at how it bleeds into that uniform. What an awful mistake. And another thing that bothers me is, and this is a concept that I made years ago, but I've always wondered, and it's a funny coincidence that I thought about this concept years ago, because I was thinking, for a reverse retro jersey, a bright green flip of their original white jersey that the Dallas Stars had when they first relocated from Minnesota, I think would have been a much, much nicer choice. Much nicer choice. I still stand behind that. But man, that is a jersey, if you're a Stars fan, I don't blame you for being disappointed. I mean, I'm sorry. I think that the logo makes that jersey suck. And if they go monochrome white, ouch. Talk about salt to the wound. The next team I'll move on to in the Central Division is the Minnesota Wild. And I am very surprised that Minnesota went with a North Stars-based reverse retro uniform. And they've even recolored their logo to match the North Stars color scheme. And another thing too, notice that the numbers are bright yellow with dark green drop shadowing. Or sorry, green drop shadowing, because it's Kelly green instead of dark green, or forest green is what they call their green. But overall, I mean, for a minimally used jersey and uniform, I think this reverse retro is going to look pretty good. It's definitely one of the better reverse retros in my opinion. I like that Minnesota paid homage to the North Stars with this uniform. But I will say this. I actually would have liked this better if Minnesota elected to use their forest green instead of Kelly green and used their normal colored version of their logo instead of this newly North Stars colored version of their logo that they've created for this jersey here. I think that if the green was forest green and they had their regular version of their logo on the front of this, and with forest green numbers with, say, I don't know, perhaps bright golden yellow drop shadowing for the numbers, that would have been much better. At least in my personal opinion. But even as I say that, I think that Minnesota did a pretty good job nonetheless. It's definitely one of the better reverse retros that I've seen. And let me see if I can... I just want to see if I can pull one thing up here. And let's see. Sorry, I don't mean to be taking a moment here to surf through some stuff here on my computer, but there's something I want to show. And I also want to make sure that I give credit to my subscriber, King Angus, for giving the idea that for me to use as inspiration for this concept, because Angus, if it wasn't for your idea, I would have never even taken the time to create a concept like this. But, the Minnesota Wild logo, what I'm trying to get at is that it looks really, really good with dark green rather than Kelly green. So, even though that I would have done it a little different, well, quite a bit different, Minnesota's jersey does look good. Moving on here to Nashville. I never thought I'd say this, but this is the first time I've seen any variation of Nashville's original uniforms that I actually don't dislike. Now, obviously it's going to look a little bit different once we see the entire uniform on the ice. But this jersey here is immediately their best jersey that they have right now. I mean, if they keep their Winter Classic sweater, which I'm really hoping that they will, I think they should. I think it's good enough to be worn a few more times. I'd like to see it stick around for one more season myself. But this is definitely the best jersey the Predators have right now. It is so much better than their home jersey. And boy, do I like gray on bright yellow? No. But I like that the navy blue separates it well. It looks good. And this is the best Nashville jersey I've seen, the best yellow one I've seen. It's the best one since their bright gold jersey from the end of the Reebok era, that's for sure. Their new Adidas home jersey sucks. Their new away jersey, I like the shoulder yoke, but the rest of the uniform, not so much. Nashville's new jerseys have been awful. So seeing something like this come along is a big improvement, but I'm still rooting for Nashville to bring back their navy blue alternate from about a decade ago. I still think that's by far and away the best jersey Nashville's ever had. But speaking of that jersey, you know what I think would have been a wonderful reverse retro for Nashville? You know what? To hell with it. I'm going to pull it up. I'm going to show you guys exactly what I think would have been a marvelous reverse retro for Nashville. Bear with me for a moment, you guys, but I want to show this to you because I want to make sure I show this, because this right here is what I think should have been their reverse retro jersey. This was such a glorious opportunity, or even a bright yellow version of this uniform. I mean, what a huge mistake Nashville made, in my opinion. Even though I do think their reverse retro's not bad, it's definitely 10 times better than their new home jersey. But that white prototype would have been incredible as a reverse retro. It would have been one of my absolute favorites immediately. Even though, as I say that, I tip my hat to Nashville for tweaking their original uniforms, a pair of uniforms, and their original third, which I thought all three were garbage. They took their original uniforms and they actually brought out this uniform here as a reverse retro, and honestly, it looks actually pretty decent. For a modern style, I think Nashville nailed it. It's not what I would have done myself, but I am a fan. Now, moving on to St. Louis, I do have to tip my hat to the Blues for doing something way outside of their realm of jerseys, because just when I thought it was crazy enough that the Blues brought back their mid-90s royal blue jersey with the striping last season as a 90s throwback for a few games, who would have ever thought that the Blues were going to do a reverse retro of that, but in red? I mean, I don't know about you viewers out there, but this is a crazy reverse retro jersey, in my opinion. The blue version of this jersey is better. The red and yellow complement the royal blue jersey base much better than it does with red. But I will say this. I do tip my hat to the Blues for being creative, but here's my thing. Ever since the Blues have been a franchise since 1967, they've never done a colored jersey that wasn't some type of blue until now. I mean, I don't know about you, but viewers out there, but I just don't think it's right seeing St. Louis wearing red. I mean, it's definitely... I tip my hat to St. Louis for pulling their mid-90s uniforms out of the hat as inspiration. But, you know, there's just, I don't know about you, but for me personally, there's just some things I don't think teams should do. I mean, one idea that I think could have been interesting was their current uniforms or their Reebok era, later Reebok era, when they actually decided to smarten up and go back to having traditional uniforms, but actually maybe even do like their home and away jerseys, but in navy blue. I think that would have been a better choice. They could have even done an early to mid 80s reverse retro, but in navy blue. I've heard I've heard the idea of a yellow Blues jersey kicked around, but they're not the Reds, they're not the Yellows, they're not the Golds, they are the Blues. I mean, for a few games, this jersey's going to be interesting, that's for sure. But would it have been my choice for the Blues to wear a red jersey? No, definitely not. I mean, I gotta say, I never thought the Blues would do a red jersey before, so this is definitely going to be interesting. But in my opinion, there's some things you just don't do with teams that have a history, decades of uniform history. And one of those things, in my opinion, is giving the Blues a red jersey. I don't know. Obviously, it's a matter of opinion. That jersey's wild, I must say. Moving on to the Winnipeg Jets. I notice a lot of people aren't fans of this design here, redone in the Jets' modern color scheme and with a darker gray color base, or base as the color. But so far, I gotta be honest, there's something about it that I don't mind. Now, I would have made the Jet white with a bit of navy blue trim instead. That would have been better. But there's something about this jersey that, as a reverse retro, I actually don't mind. I actually think there is a chance that it could grow on a lot of people once they see it on the ice. And I don't know, but so far I actually think I like this better than their current third jersey. I think the colors work, and the idea of taking their old 80s uniforms and redoing them in the modern color scheme, but doing a gray jersey instead, that's definitely an interesting choice. And it's a reverse retro jersey that so far I actually think it's going to look pretty good on the ice. One thing I do think would be cool, though, is if one day in the future, if they ever do reverse retro uniform or some type of reverse retro program again, I do think it would be nice to see perhaps a red jersey for the Jets. I think, unlike the Blues, I think the Jets can pull off a color that isn't blue. At least once in their history. Now back to Washington, like I covered in my last video. One thing I don't think I mentioned in my last video is that I would have liked to have seen them take the Capitals wordmark off of the jersey if they were going to bring this design back. But so far I'm looking at it, and so far I'm liking the Capitals reverse retro jersey more than I had anticipated. So now, the next team I'm going to move on to is the Chicago Blackhawks, but I want to make sure I acknowledge one thing in particular, and I want to thank my viewer Nick for also passing this my way. But the Blackhawks Reverse Retro Edition is a take on the secondary white jersey to the barber pole stripe style worn from 1937 through 1955, or to 1955. And, ooh, there's some more writing down there. It has never been used in this colorway, hence reverse retro. So that was an interesting choice. So I've noticed this, excuse me, I've noticed this as well, that a lot of people on the internet have been saying, oh, this is the black barber pole jersey that the Blackhawks wore back in the 1991-92 season as part of the NHL's 75th anniversary, where all of the original 6 teams wore a throwback third jersey that season. Actually, no. During that time when they wore that uniform, that sweater in the late 30s through the 40s, they actually, in that time period, I believe it was around 1945. I'm going to actually double check that just to make sure I'm factually correct here. But with the Blackhawks, they had a secondary white jersey that went with that barber pulled black jersey that I'm talking about. They started wearing one in 1940, a white jersey with the same design as their new reverse retro design. And from 1940 through to 1948, the jersey had numbers on the front and back. But then from 1948 through to 1951, they actually put the logo that was also on their barber pole jersey on the front of the white jersey. And then they had that design until the 54-55 season. And then that's when the black, sorry, I tripped on my tongue there, the black barber pole jersey and that jersey were retired in favor of jerseys looking a lot more like the iconic Blackhawks sweaters that we've been used to for many decades now. So without further ado, this is the Blackhawks reverse retro sweater. And I must say, I have to tip my hat to Chicago for taking that old white design and doing a reverse retro of that. This actually looks really good. I also tip my hat to the Blackhawks for using their old retro logo from that era. And personally, I think this design's going to look really good on the ice. I'm actually glad that they didn't add a little bit of white on the bottom. And I like the fact that they just did a reverse retro exactly, or an almost perfect reverse retro of that white sweater from the late 30s through to 1955. Well, specifically the version of that white jersey that in the 40s when they started putting the actual Blackhawks logo at the time on the front of it instead of numbers on the front of it. But this looks really good. It actually looks like it's an actual throwback uniform rather than a new take on an old design, which is really impressive, in my opinion. And I like how this is as subtle of a reverse retro as you can really get, in my opinion, where they were able to take an old design, flip the colors around, and create something new, bring out something new, but it looks like it's an actual throwback. So I'm a big fan of this. It looks great. And in my opinion, personally, it's definitely one of my absolute favorite reverse retro jerseys for sure. So there's another shot of it there. Not a great shot. I don't know why they didn't have the... Would have been nice if they had an image of the person modeling the jersey with the jersey up front like these three shots here. That's kind of bizarre. Maybe that's just a shot that... Maybe that was just an early shot that wherever I found that, or that somebody used for that set of 4 teams in that photo. But finally, I'm going to wrap up this part 3 by talking about the Colorado Avalanche, because they decided to do what the Hurricanes have been doing for years now, or for the past couple of seasons now. And they've decided to reach into their franchise's history back to the old city that they used to play in as inspiration for a new design. So this is basically a faux back, because it's not a true throwback, because what the Avalanche have done is instead of using a classic white Nordiques throwback, they've taken that design and they've put on Avalanche colors instead. Now, don't get me wrong, I agree with everybody who says that this Nordiques jersey as a reverse retro redone in the Avalanche color scheme looks terrific. I completely agree with all of you, but this jersey design looks beautiful. But in my opinion, I wish that Colorado did not do this. I wish that Colorado would have taken their original burgundy and white jerseys and done a blue reverse retro of those, because for me, seeing the Avalanche wearing Nordiques jerseys is just not right. And my reasoning for that is because Quebec City does have an NHL-ready arena, and I want to see an actual Quebec team wearing these Nordiques sweaters again. And for me, seeing the Avalanche wearing them is not going to be right. Now, obviously, the Avalanche literally are the Nordiques. The Quebec Nordiques relocated to Colorado, where they've been the Avalanche ever since, and have also won 2 Stanley Cups to boot. So, I mean, Colorado can do this, and I don't blame them. I mean, the jersey sales are off the charts, and so far I've been hearing rumors that they have such an outrageous demand for them, and obviously so. I mean, a lot of people out there are going to be wanting some type of Nordiques throwback, where I know for a fact that trying to find an old Nordiques jersey is hard to find sometimes. I must say I've been looking for quite a while, and I have not come up with one that's hasn't been at least quite expensive. So for a lot of fans, being able to get their hands on this, they're going to try to, because it's going to be an Adidas made fan replica jersey, and it's going to have the new Avalanche color scheme instead of the old classic Nordiques colors, and it's going to be a new jersey, and you're not buying, likely a used jersey. That's definitely old. So I know for a fact that jersey sales for this Nordiques-based reverse retro sweater have been off the charts so far. That's what I read on a website recently, about a few days ago, in fact. But it looks beautiful. I can't wait to see it on the ice. I just think that, for me, I don't like seeing the Avalanche being the ones wearing these classic Nordique sweaters, because for me, what it is that I want to see Quebec City get the Nordiques back so bad. I feel that Quebec deserves the Nordiques. And when I see Colorado wearing this, I feel like it's a little bit of, it sucks. Dare I say it's like salt to the wound. I mean, it's bad enough Quebec lost their team in the first place. I mean, now Colorado has been a great spot for an NHL franchise, in my opinion. But it's too bad that the Quebec Nordiques had to relocate there for Colorado to get a team. Oh, but hey, even though I wish that Colorado was not doing this, I think we can all agree on one thing. This jersey looks beautiful, and the Avalanche colors on it look terrific. It is definitely, from a non-partisan, non-biased point of view, that jersey's beautiful. And without even thinking about the logistics of the Avalanche wearing a Nordiques jersey, I think it is definitely one of the prettiest reverse retro jerseys for sure. 100%. So even though it's not what I want Colorado to do, even though I don't want Colorado wearing a Nordiques throwback, let's end the video on one positive note, and that's the agreement that this is a great design. And the Avalanche colors on it look beautiful too, by the way. So anyways, that's it for this part 3 of this series. My next video will be part 4, and that will conclude this series. And just to make sure I have covered all my bases here, so I started with Dallas, there's Chicago, Colorado, Minnesota, Nashville, St. Louis, and of course those good old Winnipeg Jets. Out of all of those teams, my favorite Central Division reverse retro jersey, it's got to be Chicago. It's got to be Chicago, but that Nordiques reverse retro definitely has to come in second place. It has to. No matter how biased I am, I cannot grade it anything lower than second best. That's for sure. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people, most people will probably disagree with me on that. And if you do, I understand. I respect your opinion. I just wish it wasn't Colorado wearing that sweater. It was a Nordiques 2.0. But anyway, that's for a different conversation altogether. On that note, folks, I'm going to finally wrap up this video. I know this one was a longer one, but there was some Metropolitan Division related uniforms I wanted to elaborate on. And once again, Good on the Islanders for saying no to the Gortons Fishermen. Good choice. There's a reason it was retired after 2 seasons. That was the darkest era of the Islanders' history as a franchise. Some of the worst uniforms in NHL history. And do I think... Sorry, my throat's getting dry. I mean, do I think the Islanders could have had some fun with this and done a teal reverse retro of the Gortons Fishermen? Sure. Would it have made a lot of money? Absolutely, it would have. And it would make way more money than a navy blue flip of their away jersey. Guaranteed. But I love the fact that the Islanders did not think about the money and they thought more about honoring their team's tradition and their uniforms and honoring their history. And that is something that is a huge feather in their cap, in my opinion. And I know a lot of people are going to disagree. Now, once again, an orange reverse retro would have been better in my opinion, but that navy blue jersey, I love it. It's one of my favorite reverse retros, and good on the Islanders for saying no to the Fishermen. Good choice. Obviously, I'm biased. But anyways, you guys, that's a wrap for this video. Let me know what you think about my views on the jerseys. What did you think of the Central Division reverse retro jerseys? And on that note, you guys, if you stuck around, I hope you enjoyed the video. And until my next video, and with the conclusion of this series, take care, and as always, bye for now.